Ladies and gentlemen, pray silence for the man, the legend, Mr. Irvine Welsh, and our host and moderator, Chloe Lula from Resident Advisor.
Thanks, buddy. Cheers. Thanks, Steve. You want to sit in the middle, or? Yeah.
Hey. Hello. Can everybody hear me? So welcome to this live RA exchange from the Nighttime Industries Association Conference at E1. My name is Chloe Lula. I am the Senior Producer Resident Advisor, and today I'm joined by the formidable Irvine Welsh. Welsh is best known as a novelist, playwright, and short story author whose work raises crucial and provocative questions around class, identity, and the human condition. His first book in 1993, Trainspotting, was made into a movie of the same name, and he went on to pen 12 other novels, 5 short story collections, and several plays and screenplays. He's not just a writer, he harbors an avid love of electronic music and club culture, and plays in a touring acid house group in addition to running a nascent record label. So I can't think of anyone better suited to speak at the conference today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Thank you for coming along. It's great to be described as formidable. I've never heard that one before. That's brilliant.
So to open up the chat, I thought we could begin by briefly touching on your connection to clubbing and nightlife. I mean, this is a running thread through all of your work. And if I'm not mistaken, you notoriously draw a lot of your literary anecdotes from your own biography. So what was it like coming of age in Scotland in the 70s and 80s, and what role did nightlife and club culture play in your life?
I was always quite nocturnal. I mean, since I've only really appreciated daylight since I started writing, basically. And now I really love it. You know, I love the daytime, but I could never wait for the night. I always used to like to go out at night. I stayed up late. I was kind of one of these annoying kids that would never come in when it got dark. And my mum and dad used to have to go looking around for us and all that and bring us back, basically. And because in Scotland it gets dark all the time, very quickly, you know. But yeah, I just always enjoyed the vibe when the sun went down. And I mean, everything, I always felt that you kind of, things like I hated, like school and work and all that, you had to do them during the day. And they were things to get out of the way. And you really kind of, there was the excitement of the night. And I always sort of vibed on that. And then, you know, when the punk thing kicked off, I couldn't wait to get down to London and get immersed in that. And I was very fortunate that I had relatives in West London, so it was like a home from home for me.
So what were the punk scene's crossovers with electronic music at that time, and how did you end up finding a home with acid house?
I think before that, I think like from kind of my generation, like Bowie was the big key, because he was like, for working class kids, he was a one-man art school, basically, and he introduced you to all this kind of music, like the kind of the New York American underground punk scene, like Iggy Pop and the Velvet Underground, the soul scene with Luther Vandross and kind of the Young Americans era, but also to Kraftwerk and electronic music. So that always kind of struck a chord with me. I kind of really vibed on that kind of music. And I was always a big fan of disco. I mean, I was like, I had a dual identity of a kind of sort of a punk and then a kind of disco guy. And punks and disco were completely different tribes in those days. So I would be dressed as a punk, and then I would get out of the punk gear into my disco togs and be really absolutely shit scared and a bag of nerves in case any of my mates saw me sort of sneaking into the disco, all done up to the nines. So there was always that sort of duality and that kind of that not wanting to necessarily be, being energized by all these different scenes, but not necessarily wanting to be stuck in any one tribe.
I'm curious, in the literary world, you've created clubs, and drug use are often depicted as sites for escapism and hedonism rather than necessarily places of communion. Like in Trainspotting, it's really, it's a painkiller for existential depression and confusion. But I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit to the benefits of club life and nightlife, and if they can be important crucibles for culture and counterculture.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I kind of once wrote, maybe a bit pretentiously, that raves and the chill-out zones and raves were the new boot camps of interaction. And it sounds a bit poncy now, but I actually do believe that. I mean, I met so many different people through the whole rave and acid house experience, as I did through punk, but you had much more of, and probably because of the influence of ecstasy, you had much more of a qualitative experience. You kind of, you met somebody and you got chatting to them, and you were instantly kind of best friends within about kind of 20, about as long as it took for the pill to kick in, maybe about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. You were kind of best friends forever. And these are very sort of, these are very heady days. I mean, you think about the sort of the drugs and the dancing and the parties and the sort of the crazy fun, but much more interesting and much more lasting, I think, was the friendships and relationships you made with people then, and not just in the town that you live in. You know, I mean, we had a little kind of posse that just went around everywhere. We went to Leeds, to Back to Basics, to Manchester, to the Hacienda, up and down between London and Edinburgh, to Glasgow, to the Sub Club and the Arches, and Sheffield, the Republic. We just went around all these different places and met all these different people. And then when I got involved in DJing, I had the chance to sort of basically take the show on the road and get out, and meet people in all these different countries, from all over the world, and make a network of friends who are basically still friends to this day. And so it was just such a great time, and you can't imagine that thing happening during the day. And I think that you have to. I mean, you have to. There's a very kind of primal thing that people have about this kind of tremendous fear of the night, particularly kind of straight people. Kind of, sort of. They think that all the nefarious stuff goes on at night time, and during the day is where the respectable people hang out. Well, I mean, all the financial manipulation and chicanery and all the decision makings that kind of basically fuck everybody's life up happens during the day, basically, in offices and and on consoles and stuff, and in Zoom calls. All the good things really happen at night, and the real freedom happens at night. The real expression happens at night. The culture is generated at night. Economic activity doesn't stop when it gets dark. So I think that what people who are working in the nighttime industries face is a very primal conception of what nighttime is and what happens at nighttime from in the eyes of power, basically in the eyes of very kind of straight power elites who operate in entrenched ways and have entrenched ways of thinking.
No, I think you're totally right. And one major effect we all saw from the pandemic was that it moved people almost exclusively into online spaces. And over the last couple of years, I've felt this renewed push towards like a technological imperative, I guess. And I wonder what your opinion is on how this has affected connectedness and community.
Well, I think, it's given all the schemers and planners a leg up in their efforts to render us all kind of post-human. You know, it's like the whole AI Trojan horse, and it's, you know, it's not the technology, it's the control of the technology that's the important thing. And we have, you know, I think I hope and I pray and I actually expect that this summer is going to be crazy, and everybody just collectively says, fuck off, the roaring 20s are back, we're having it again. And I kind of, I have a genuine belief that you can't stop humanity. You can't stop people from wanting to connect and wanting to basically have it again. And, you know, I know that the economy is bad and everybody's been ripped off by elites, but I think that so much of it is psychological. I think people will go out again. I think it will happen this year.
No, I hope that you're right. And I feel the same optimism, but at the same time, I was reading the BBC yesterday, and they republished the report from the NTIA, which pointed to this increasing accessibility of the arts due to the growing class divide, the cost of living crisis, and venues really needing more financial help than they even did during the pandemic. And I wonder what you think the implications for small venues and independent artistry in general are.
Well, I mean, so many people were basically hung out to dry. I mean, I was very fortunate in that, as primarily, I mean, you know, we didn't do any music gigs, we didn't get any kind of bookings or anything like that, obviously. But I'm fortunate, my main activity is writing, and you just, you know, being locked up is actually good for me because it stops me from going out and distracting myself and forces me to get on with my work. But most of my friends who are like musicians and DJs and, you know, promoters, nightclub owners and, you know, hospitality industry staff, they had a terrible time during lockdown. They, you know, it's like the tremendous tax on their mental health and the tremendous, you know, and they were really hung out to dry to a large extent and given very little or no support at all from the government. And we now look at this and we're really, I mean, a lot of people who kind of accepted it and accepted that this was all about the defence of the NHS and kind of and about the, you know, about saving lives, are now beginning to have second thoughts about it, and they're now beginning to see that this is a bit more spurious. I mean, you look back on it, it does seem to be a bit more spurious. But irrespective of how you feel about the politics of it, there's no doubt that the nighttime economy was highly discriminated against, and the creative people working in the nighttime in the nighttime economy, like musicians, DJs, producers, were very much discriminated against as well. It's like for someone like me, I can just write books and I can bring out books and people will read them, or I can, you know, we managed to shoot a TV show, you know, during lockdown. And get it out there, and it did well. But if you're a musician or DJ or producer, it's all right saying you can sit at home for 2 years and make tons and tons of music, but you've got to be able to showcase this. You've got to be able to showcase this at gigs. You've got to be able to showcase this at events. Otherwise, it's just, you're just throwing more stuff out into the ether that people kind of, you know, that it means nothing. There's no social context for it. There's no way of feeling the experience of it, particularly for music, because it is so much about kind of the interface with live performance.
This might be a bigger question than you could answer since it's more policy-oriented, but what do you think the next steps for clubs and governments and individuals should be to preserve underground culture?
Well, I'm not a politician or a policy guy, but and it's always easy to say that money should be put into this and money should be put into that. But I really think that we have to get back to the notion of a high wage, high tax economy, and I think that's something we need to get the concept of a redistribution of wealth back into society. And I think that, in general, the world has far too many billionaires and far too few millionaires. I think we should, you should basically, anybody who's got any more than 5 million quid, take it off them and give it to everybody else in a lottery. Just have a national lottery. Give everybody that wins I don't know how many millions you would get if you took all the billionaires other than 5 million away from them. And then you have a lottery and you give everybody that wins the lottery sort of £1 million each. Now, it's tough on the people that lose out, but it's done in an arbitrary way. And therefore, what you would have is if it's somebody who's kind of just wants to sit around and piss it up, great. The pubs do a roaring trade. Greg's, the bakeries do a roaring trade. They've got enough money to pay for their own medical bills, so there's no burden on the NHS when they sort of explode for having eaten their 5th McDonald's of the day. But other people, they might want to set up businesses. They might want to grow investments and all that. So you have this massive economic pump priming, and instead of money being taken out of the economy, money's back in the economy and circulates, and that should be the kind of aim of of society now, is to make everybody a millionaire and make nobody a billionaire.
That would be an ideal world to live in. I agree. I was reading some interviews that you've done in the past. I know you've spoken quite a bit about the effect that living in a capitalist society has on art and art making. And in one recent interview, you said, today, you basically write into marketing holes. You write thrillers or crime or romance or science fiction. You shoot into these holes now. It's very retail-driven. It's very entertainment-led rather than art-led. I wonder if you feel that art today is being directed by marketing incentives rather than a real creative impulse, and if you also see parallels in the dance music industry.
Well, I think I think this has definitely happened. There's forces, ideological and technological forces that are moving us into a post-human society. And the things that make us human, the two main things that make us human are love and art, So we're getting into a thing where we're not really allowed to feel any kind of pain or hurt and all that. So if we don't feel pain or hurt, there's no growth, because we don't, if we don't feel pain, we don't really know what pleasure is. We have to kind of experience a full range of human emotions, and we can't kind of continue to edit things out and to make them safe because they're negative or offend us or upset us in some kind of way. We have to experience that full range. And I'm not talking about willful cruelty or obnoxious kind of behaviour towards people. I'm just talking about the normal kind of human sort of ups and downs and peaks and troughs that everybody has. So I think that it's, when you say art's under threat, I think it is, and I think humanity is but I think it's because humanity is under threat. And I think that, now you have the technology whereby, like dance music, for example. Dance music used to be made by people who danced. People went out and they went to nightclubs and they danced and they thought, this is great. And they kind of, they got, they cobbled together their machines and they started to make music, and they kind of went back out to clubs and they had it and they made music and they DJ'd and they went back out. Now it's possible. You can be somebody who's sat in a bedroom all their life and has never been inside a dance music club, who can make actually pretty acceptable dance music. They can just and it's not a criticism of people who do that, because that's the sort of the technological imperative for kids now, but they don't really need to go out to be able to make brilliant dance music. You know, it might, for people of my era, it might seem a bit soulless or derivative or have been done before, but, you know, kids, they would just say, but you're just an old fucker, you don't kind of get it. And they'd be right to an extent as well. But I think that the more you recycle things with experience from a media culture, and we're all producers now, and you take it away from a street culture where things are contested, things come about because they're contested, because they're argued, they're disputed over, you know, like mods will argue with Teds, will argue with punks, will argue with skinheads, will argue, you know, about what is the sort of, you know, about music. And out of that, you know, out of these clashes come a different form of music. It's like the kind of, it's like that Hegelian kind of kind of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. We lose all that now because it's a very top-down culture. Media culture is a very hierarchical top-down culture. Some influencer on Instagram will say something, some pop star will endorse it, and then everybody feels that they don't want to miss out, or they don't want to be, they don't want to stand out in their peer group, because peer groups are very important. And your peer group is now the world of everybody your own age, rather than the people that you used to hang out in the street with. So that leads to a leveling down of culture and an inability to take risks in the same way.
Yeah, I think we live in an age where it's amazing how tools to create music have become so democratized, and so many people have access to these tools that didn't before. But at the same time, I agree that it feels like there's almost like a homogenization of music and art to a certain extent.
Well, I mean, it's like, I mean, again, it's like, I think it's the control of the technology and the hierarchical nature of the world that's the important issue, not the actual technology itself. I mean, it's kind of saved my life. You know, somebody like me who is hopelessly non-musical, isn't a musician, can do music now. You know, I mean, I've no, all I wanted to do was play guitar, or you know, play keyboards. I've no keyboarding or fretboarding skills, so I couldn't do music. You know, I should have these long fingers. I should be able to do kind of to do great stuff on a piano or a guitar, but I can't. I'm just not wired that way. It doesn't connect up to the brain. But I can sit there with a program on a computer and I can make music all day long now. You know, so it's a massive liberation for me, and not just in music. I mean, I couldn't have written a shopping list before the word processor. Basically, you know, I wouldn't have been able to write longhand a book. I wouldn't have had the patience to do it. So the technology has enabled people like me. It's been a fantastic thing. But the technology there has to be a balance. The technology has to come with a whole experiential dimension. You know, it has to interface with the experiential dimension of somebody going out there and living their life. You know, you sort of, you have to have that connection between the two. If it's all just somebody messing around on a screen and there's nothing out there, you know, there is no social life out there, we're all living in these little boxes, then art is basically fucked, humanity is fucked. So we have to get back out again. We have to encourage everybody to get back out again.
On that note, I want to talk a little bit about your music career. I know that you tried to make it as a musician before writing, so I understand. Can you tell me a little bit about that and your decision to return to it again recently?
It's terrible. It's still haunted by it because it was all I wanted to do, and kind of still, you know, still all I want to do, which is incredibly sad. But yeah, I mean, I was always the last. I could never. I mean, I started off. I can't sing a note. So then I went to playing guitar, no dexterity in the guitar, so I did what a lot of failed guitarists do and went to play bass. Still terrible, could never keep time with the drummer, and just basically everybody moved on, and I was the guy sort of left. You know, they wouldn't so much kick me out the band, although they did a few times, but they actually all left at the same time. You know, and I was the band, and they formed a different band, and they got a new bassist in. But one of the nice things about being a bassist, or even a failed bassist, is that it does help you kind of with the beat. You know, it does help you keep time if you're kind of bass conscious. So it's nice. You know, it's like I can just about kind of DJ. I can just about mix on the beat now after all these years of doing that. You know. And that's what I did after, you know, when I'd sort of failed as a musician. I started DJing, and I wasn't particularly a good DJ by any means, but it was just beginning to get somewhere when the first book that I wrote took off, and basically, I kind of stopped DJing a part, just very occasionally I would go out and do stuff, but because DJ's hours, you know, are nighttime economy hours basically, and writers' hours are during the day, you know. So I kind of, when I got into that stage that I was just coming home with a box of records and then ready to just get up and start writing, I realised that one of the things had to go, you know, and I'd rather it was the writing, but it was more successful with the writing, so I had to stick with the writing.
I can empathize with everything that you just said. I know that you have at least one record label, or do you have two?
Well, it's one record label really, but we've got two imprints now within the label.
Okay, so one is Creation Records, and then the imprint is Jack Says What?
Creation Records? No, I wish, like, you know, don't. I hope Alan McGee's not here, for fuck's sake. Like, he'll be suing me. No, we started up a label called Jack Said What, and I still don't know why we've called it Jack Said What. Like, it was myself, Steve Mack, and Carol Lobin decided we'd just start up this label. You know, we had this little techno thing going, and we thought we'll bring our own stuff out on this label, and then we just started to basically just kind of signed up a lot of our mates and brought stuff out, and it kind of took off. You know, we didn't have any grand scheme or grand design, but it's doing really well, you know, which is quite a surprise. And we focus mainly on artists in the Brighton area, so it's close to London. You know, there's a scene in Brighton, so you can actually have them doing gigs locally and build up the consciousness of the label there. And it's so close to London, you can put things on in London. I think that's been kind of stage one. Our next stage two, this year, we're going to do more kind of Jack Says What gigs with the artists that we have on the label, and do some of them all over the country. And stage three will be to hopefully kind of become a sort of more of a national rather than a regional brand, because we want to tie it into a scene. It's what, you know, the thing I was talking about. We want it to be very much a scene. We don't want to just. I mean, all my mates at Edinburgh have been sending me tapes and saying, you know, fuck all these bastards down in Brighton. What about us? Yeah, fuck, you know. So, but the thing is, we want to create a local scene and a local vibe, so that it actually means something, and it's got a, you know, and then we build it up from there. And we want to do it in kind of sort of in clusters of locality, and also you can properly give artists properly. We want to try and support them. You know, we want to try and kind of give them a bit of market and give them a bit of promotion, and not just bung stuff out in a label that, you know, that maybe somebody, 1 in 30 might be a hit and you might make some money from. And, so we want to actually, we don't want to bring anything out and just kind of throw it under a bus. We want to try and make sure that it has some kind of life behind it.
No, that's great. That's exciting. I know that you're also writing some music. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you are currently writing the soundtrack to Trainspotting the musical. Is that right?
Yeah, we're doing the musical of Trainspotting, and we thought, like Phil McIntyre, who's a West End producer, he's been at me for a while to do it as a musical, and I've kind of resisted because I thought, well, I mean, I couldn't really see it as a musical. And then I thought, maybe because I can't see it as a musical, it's the right thing to do. It's maybe the right thing to do it as a musical. Because I was thinking musicals as being quite fun and camp, and but there's a lot of very dark musicals. It's like, kind of Rent's quite dark, West Side Story's quite dark in its own way. Even Les Miserables is quite sort of dark too, So you think, well, it might be interesting to do something that's, Phil wanted us to license all the tracks from the film, and we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to just do a rerun of the film on stage. We wanted it to be something very, very different, So we decided to write the songs for it ourselves, and he insisted that we license 3 songs, which I think was, which I know was Lust for Life, Perfect Day, and Born Slippy, because they've become very iconically associated with the whole Trainspotting thing. But we wrote about I think about a dozen, maybe more now, songs for it, which we'll use about 10 or so. And we were very nervous. We were down in the studio in Brighton banging these songs out, and Steve was just trying to kind of finally mix them as they were coming down the train from London to hear them, So I was doing all that stuff about, let's go for breakfast, met them at the station, let's go for breakfast first. And they were going, well, we really should get to the studio. No, we'll have some breakfast first and all, And Steve's texting me, I need another half an hour. Can we go to the studio? And you must look at the beach when you're down in Brighton and all this kind of daft stuff. So eventually we got them into the studio, they kind of pushed me into the studio, and Steve had just finished tidying the songs up, and we played them to the Phil and his people from London, and they loved them. They were just blown away. We got a couple of songs in, and Paul, who's the director at Phil McIntyre's, the producer, was saying that we've got a musical. There's no doubt about it. And we've been working with a cast, young cast. Now we're looking at theatres, doing the set design. So we're kind of we're ready to go this October. It'll be sometime between this October and this February, March. It'll come out. Depending on the theatre availability, basically, and actor availability. But we'll do it sometime within that time frame. We'll go straight into the West End for a few months and keep it, and then take it on the road, take it right round the UK, and then go back into the West End. So that's our plan for it so far.
I'm very intrigued by your creative process because you seem to genuinely delight in it when it can be a struggle for most people, myself included. And I know you've said in the past that writing books comes very easily to you. Do you feel the same way about writing music?
Yeah, I mean, I think anything you do creatively, you kind of, you have to see it as a kind of square goal with yourself, basically. You're trying to sort of psychically smash fuck out of yourself and see what emerges, and I think that the more, with the first draft, the more kind of unruly it is, and the more the more sort of messed up you are about it, and the more hostile you feel and ambivalent you feel about it, often the better. You know, I mean, I like to, you know, it's pretty much the same process with music. You know, it's like sometimes if I'm writing something, I'll get some idea. You know, I'll get some internal little rhythm going. You know, jump away from the writing, from the novel or whatever it is, or screenplay, and I'll start to mess around on a keyboard and or kind of mess around with sampling to just try to capture the vibe that I've been feeling. You know, and conversely, sometimes when I'm messing around, if we're messing around in the studio trying to get something together, I'll start thinking about a character will just pop into my head as a result of that, you know, thinking like, and then I just think, I want to get out of here and I want to get onto my laptop and start smashing out some words, basically, you know. So that's, you know, it's like, keep it, for the first draft of anything, you know, keep it as unruly and chaotic as possible, and then try and tease order out of it for the, you know, subsequent drafts.
That's interesting. So are you finding it not easy, but are you juggling your different creative pursuits?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's you go from one to the other, and it's been a crazy time because I've been we've been working editing Crime 2 for ITV. And re-editing Crime 1 for it to go out from a streaming platform onto terrestrial, which is a different kind of rules, basically. Been getting the musical together, been editing a book, been working on a radio show in America with Bret Easton Ellis, and working with Jonas Åkerlund on a Berlin TV show, a Berlin kind of sort of fall off the Berlin Wall kind of slash kind of beginning a love parade type of drama. And just editing another book with John King and Alan Warner, which we started doing during the last lockdown, and we've done a second one now. And yeah, so it is. It's like you know, we've got obviously got the label stuff, and a few DJing gigs coming up, and also our kind of techno kind of thing. So we just shot a video for that too. So it's a lot of different things and to jump between. But it's interesting. It kind of I've got to be involved in these things. Otherwise, I'm just kind of making a nuisance of myself. You know, I'm hanging around bars and kind of clubs and just kind of drinking too much and getting up to too much nonsense. So the devil does make work for idle hands. So it's best for me to be really busy.
Are you still going to clubs at all? I know you mentioned to me backstage that you're living back in London now.
Well, that's why I started DJing again, because I was like, you know, it's like I was fed, you know, it was like when I stopped DJing, I was fed up kind of being one of the oldest people in the club, basically. And now, astonishingly, kind of 20 years on, I've started again, and I'm actually not the oldest people in the people in the club. It's all old people and young people that go to clubs nowadays. There's no middle-aged people at all, you know. So it's quite interesting to see that phenomenon. And there's so many people from that kind of era of acid house that are still going clubbing, that are still dedicated clubbers, which is quite amazing. So it's fun to go out, because you know you kind of you don't sense that people are saying, "Who's that old pervert hanging around at the back of the club?" Fuck, it's a DJ, you know. Or maybe they are, but they're saying it to everybody and not just me.
One thing that you didn't mention in your long list of ongoing projects is a documentary that I think is coming out about your life. Do you know what we can expect from that? And I believe it's coming out in the next year, is that right?
Well, it's worse than that. There's actually 2 documentaries that are being made on me at the same time. And I mean, I think 1 is massively excessive, but 2, it's a bit like kind of buses, you know, it's like I've got a really good pal who said, I wanted to do a documentary on you and to produce this documentary. And I thought, yeah. And I thought, nobody will be interested in doing a documentary on me because it's not, you know, it's not a particularly interesting story. Another pal had said, like, yeah, we're going to do a documentary on you. I said, yeah, great. And I forgot all about telling the first pal, yeah, let's do it. And they both at once, literally in the same week, about 2 years later, said, right, we've got funding for the documentary, you know. So I thought, fuck, there's no way this is going to work out. Like, you know, I mean, as I say, who wants to see 2 documentaries on me, you know? So I tried to get them talking together and say, you know, my initial hope was that they would work together and produce one kind of super documentary, but they've got a bit territorial about it and they're kind of hanging on to their turf. So hopefully I've managed to push them in different directions and make one more about the train-spotting phenomenon and all that, with people talking about it and you know, about the from book to musical and encompassing stage play and film, obviously, and the other one about me, basically. Yeah, that's the plan. I mean, they seem, you know. Hopefully they're not covering the same territory, but you know, I've had one actually. One of them have been following me around for about a year now. You know, so it's funny because you don't think you do anything interesting, and then you think to yourself, "Fuck, they've been in Miami with me, they've been in Berlin with me, they've been in Ibiza with me, they've been in LA with me, kind of, you know." Been in Dublin, they've been in Edinburgh, Glasgow, London with me. So I do get around a bit more than I think I do. Because when you're writing, you're in your own head and you're not really consciously aware that you're moving into different spaces.
Well, I think we're closing in on the last minute or so. Actually, we're over, so...
We've run over time, oh my God!
Do you have any, I don't know, any closing notes about the multidisciplinary creative process or club life, nightlife?
No, I mean, my only closing note would be to thank everybody for coming along and supporting this whole conference in general. And for listening to me talking shite for half an hour, which is I wouldn't consciously put anybody through that. So hopefully we could maybe there'll be more. There's more party stuff happening later on, isn't there? So yeah, hopefully everybody will they'll be rewarded later on for showing up here during the day. So enjoy the rest of the conference and thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much.